I guess we just get started at this point. So, all right. Well, listen. Hey, welcome, Glenwood, everyone. Today we are like one of the luckiest schools in the world because we have a guest that I know many of you are familiar with from us reading his books here in the library. We have Mr. Josh Funk joining us all the way from the New England area. Through the magic of technology here, so he can share some stuff about his new book of his series. I like to say Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast every time I say the title. So I know everybody's really excited to meet you, Josh. Like I said, you are a hero here in this building because of the books that we've read of yours as part of the March Book Madness activity that happens. And your book has always got many votes here whenever it's in that. So I know the kids are super excited to hear you and learn from you. And I know we have some great questions we'll be able to share with you later on. So everyone, I give a virtual round of applause. I know that you're not going to be able to hear them, but to Josh, and take it away.
Oh, well, thank you. You know what? You're not lucky because I'm here. You're lucky because you have amazing educators like Mr. G who set these things up for you. You have an amazing local bookstore, that Children's Book World, that is, one of the best children's bookstores that I've ever been to. And you should definitely make sure to support them throughout this holiday season and always. But that's really why you're lucky. I'm Josh. I write picture books like the Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast series. It's not Hansel and Gretel and that series. But I was going to tell you a little bit today about the Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast series. And I'm going to read you one of the books in a second. But first, I want to give you a little review. So this book here, Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast, is my very first book. It's the first book that I ever got published. It came out in 2015, so about 5 years ago. And I got the idea for this book from my kids. I came down for breakfast one day and I asked my kids what they wanted. And one of them said, "I want pancakes." And the other one said, "I want French toast." And I was like, guys, I am a terrible cook. One time I even burned their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So while they were eating their burnt waffles, I thought, you know what? You know what would make a fun idea for a story? A pancake and a French toast arguing about something. And so I wrote that and I thought, what would they argue about though? And I asked my kids and one of them said syrup. And I thought, brilliant, of course, syrup. And so in this book, that's what they do. There is only one drop of syrup left in the fridge. And so Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast are racing for it. Side note, I can't remember which one of my kids said syrup. And so today they argue about who came up with the idea for syrup. So it started with two kids arguing about what to eat for breakfast, and it continues today with them arguing about who came up with the idea for the ending. Spoiler alert, the book's been out for 5 years, so if you haven't read it, Baron von Waffle actually gets the syrup at the end. And when I saw Brendan Kearney's illustrations for this book, when I saw his sketches, so I'm the author, Josh, and Brendan is the illustrator. He did the most amazing sketches. He created this whole world. Does anyone out there like to draw in pencil and paper? Well, that's what Brendan did. He did the whole book just with pencil and paper, sketches. And I thought it was so cool. I was like, you know what? I need to explore more of this world. And so I started writing, thinking about more stories that I could write for this world. I don't know if you remember, in the middle of this book, there is a bean avalanche. Brendan Kearney told me that he spent an entire week of his life coloring in beans. A whole week of his life he spent coloring in beans. So if you keep working on your art, someday it could be your job to color in beans, because that's a real job. That's what Brendan did, coloring in beans. Now, I wish I practiced my art more when I was a kid. I'm very fortunate that I've had amazing, talented illustrators illustrate books for which I've written the words. But when I saw Brendan's illustrations, I thought, I need to write more. And so I thought, a lot of times sequels are not as good as the first story. And there's a lot of examples throughout history that I won't go into, but it's hard to make a book number 2 to be as good as a book number 1. And I thought, what would make it so that the book number 2 is just as good as the book number 1? And I thought, what if I were to make it a holiday book. Everyone likes holiday books. It's a holiday season right now. Who doesn't like holiday books? So I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to sort of cheat, and I'm going to make it a holiday book. That way everyone has to like it. And so I did. I wrote a book called The Case of the Stinky Stench. And has anyone ever opened the fridge and things smelled kind of funny? Well, that's what's happening in the fridge in this book. And Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast have to help Inspector Croissant try to figure out what is causing the fridge to start to stink and smell over. And so I wrote this, and there was a whole lot of holiday stuff in there. The actual cause of the stinky stench is a traditional holiday food. I'm not going to spoil it and give it away, although it is spoiled food. There was a gingerbread village. There were potato latkes in an applesauce river. There was a whole bunch of holiday stuff, and the publisher said, we love it, but we want to sell it all the time, not just during the holiday season. We want to sell it year round. Could you take out all the holiday stuff? So I did, except for the culprit. So the guy who's causing the stinky stench, or girl, they are still a holiday food. So it's not really a holiday book anymore, but it sort of is if you end up reading it. And then I thought, I've got a race, I've got a mystery. I like to change up sort of the style, the genre of book. And so for the third book in the series, I thought, what's another problem a fridge could have? Things start to sort of freeze over. I keep saying sort of a lot. I got to catch myself on that. Fridge. Has that ever happened to anybody? I reached in the back of the fridge the other day, and there was a hummus back there, and it was like an ice cube. It was frozen solid. So I had to let it defrost for a little while. But that happens sometimes. And in this book, the fridge is freezing over, and Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast have to help Agent Asparagus, who works for the FBI, the Fridge Bureau of Investigation. They have to help her try to figure out what's causing the fridge to freeze over. And something I forgot to show you, at the very end of all of the books, there's this special page called a gatefold, where, look at this, the page folds down. How cool is that? And in the very first book, you can see Baron von Waffle is peeking out of the freezer there, right? And so that gave me the idea. I didn't tell Brendan to illustrate it that way, but that gave me the idea that I should try to have them ask Baron von Waffle for help when they need to go in the freezer. And so they did. And long story short, now he's their friend. And I had written these books, and I visited lots of schools like yours and bookstores like Children's Book World and all of these places. And kids were asking me questions like, how come they're not stale yet? It says on the first page of the first book that Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast are leftovers, but how are they not stale? And I thought about that. It was a question just like questions you guys might have today. And I thought, you know what? I need to address this. So I did, in short and sweet. That's what's happening. And I'm going to read this to you right now, short and sweet. It is the fourth book in the Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast series. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to read this. All right. So this is the title page. Still in the fridge and behind the Swiss Chard, in their apartment on Crust Boulevard, prepping a tea party ready to host, stood Lady Pancake beside Sir French Toast. Just as they finished the boiling and baking, Pancake said, "All of my muscles are aching." "Also," said Toast, "my complexion is pale." Pancake then screamed, "Are we both going stale?" Baron von Waffle, their guest, said, "You're gruesome. I've never seen such a hideous twosome." The duo was shocked by their newly made friend. Waffle went on, "I don't mean to offend. In fact, it so happens there might be a cure. Check out Professor Biscotti's brochure. Starting to mildew or curdle or crumble, don't sit around and complain, pout and grumble. Try out my patented de-spoiling ray. Feel fresh and young again. Visit today." And I don't know if you know what a biscotti is, but biscotti is sort of a crunchy, dry almond cookie. Sometimes it has chocolate along the edges. I used to eat biscotti at my grandmother's house all the time. She always had biscotti in her apartment, and she would always get it from like BJ's or Costco and in a big bin. And yeah, it always reminds me of my grandma. Off to Professor Biscotti's they strode, down to her lab out by Artichoke Road. Does anyone like artichokes? Artichokes are super delicious, and they're really fun to eat. You can kind of like peel off the leaves with your teeth. I highly recommend everyone asks for artichokes for dinner tonight, okay? Tell them Josh Funk said so. Greetings, she said as she tightened a gear. Here for despoiling? Terrific, sit here. And look at this despoiling ray. Look at how cool that is. It's an avocado sliced in half with some onion and cheese and Cheerios on the edges. I mean, avocado, that totally makes sense, right? Because avocados, they keep you young. I don't know if you're supposed to eat them or rub them on your face like a face mask, but a lot of hipsters eat avocados, so they must keep people young. Nervously, Pancake and Toast settled in. Biscotti gave one tiny knob a quick spin. Oh, and look at these chairs. I want one of these chairs. If anyone's getting me any gifts, tell them I want one of these chairs. It's got like a slice of bread for the back, a Swiss cheese cushion, and pickle footrest. I mean, that looks so comfy, doesn't it? I wonder if it reclines. Do you guys think it reclines? I bet it does. With whooshes and whistles, a spark and a blast, the gadget emitted a laser at last. Where did they go? Waffle asked through the smoke. Right over here, a falsetto voice spoke. And look at them. They shrunk into tiny little kids. Explain what you did to them, Waffle demanded. Professor Biscotti said, I'll be candid. I over-despoiled them with my device. I'm ever so sorry. I'll charge you half price. Waffle stood fuming. His monocle shook. Charge us, screamed Waffle. They're children, just look. Eek, shouted Pancake. Oh, Waffle, I'm scared. The monster will eat us. Let's run, Toast declared. Eat you? I'm scary. No, wait, Waffle uttered. I thought we were friends, but hey, Waffle stuttered. Shrieking, the duo of pint-sized companions scampered and slid all the way to Bran Canyons. Over the great wall of pine nuts they dashed, and down through the fjords of farfalle they splashed. Does anyone know what farfalle is? It's kind of like that bow tie pasta. I love farfalle. So you know what a fjord is? A fjord is a frozen waterfall type of landform that they have in Scandinavia. I just wanted to make your librarian have to say fjords of farfalle, fjords of farfalle, fjords of farfalle. Out of the lab came a blubbering moan. Baron von Waffle sat weeping alone. They were my friends, but they ran off and fled. Am I a monster? 'Cause that's what they said. Professor Biscotti approached and began, My gadget, I'll fix it, but we need a plan. And these are all her little minions. She has these minion cookies because she is a fancy kind of cookie. So she has all these minion cookies. Look, one of them's even in her hair. Phew, are we safe now? Asked Toast at Pie Pier. Pancake responded, No waffles round here. Then in the distance, they spotted Lime Square. Pancake asked, Race ya? And Toast said, I'm there. Down to the city they skipped and they hopped until Pasta Playground, where both of them stopped. Looks like a pretty fun playground, doesn't it? Baguette seesaw. Can't wait to go to playgrounds again. Pancake played fetch with a little pet nugget that scampered away when she offered to hug it. Toast tried the seesaw, the swings, and the slide. That's when he saw something better inside. If you look really closely, you can see that this is a library. And we were going to call it a library. You can actually see there are berry statues on the side from when we called it a library, but we decided not to call it that because we didn't want to perpetuate the mistake. So it's a library, but the berry statues are still there. Waffle, still sour, knew just what to do. This is the bait that'll capture those two. Biscotti kept working in her laboratories while Pancake and Toast sat enraptured by stories. And if you look really close or you get a copy of the book from Children's Book World, you'll see there's a bunch of funny, silly book titles that I put up here, like Don't Let the Pecan Drive the Bus, The Book with No Pickles, Amelia Vidalia, Harold and the Purple Onion, Sylvester and the Magic Pepper. It's a whole bunch like that. Until the two children inhaled something sweet, and instantly both of them raced to the street. They followed their noses past fjord wall and hill, and then kept on running and running until... The old syrup trick, Waffle said with a smirk. Professor, I've got him. So now will it work? And look, he's got little baby bottles of syrup, little tiny baby syrup bottles. She answered, I hope so, or else this endeavor might cause your two friends to be children forever. It whooshed and it whistled, except nothing sparked. Something is missing, Biscotti remarked. Waffle responded, You've got to succeed. Okay, said Biscotti, but what does it need? Waffle said, Looks like the cogs are too slick. Maybe some syrup will get them to stick. And maybe syrup will solve two problems in this book. It lured Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast back to the lab, and it's going to maybe fix the machine. It whooshed and it whistled, it sparked and it blasted, and when the smoke emptied, they stood flabbergasted. Yes, said Biscotti, success, they've returned. Waffle, however, looked rather concerned. Biscotti continued, cheer up, you look awful. They called me a monster, remember, said Waffle. So you were the Waffle, said Pancake, appalled. But we were the monsters, Sir French Toast recalled. Waffle, forgive us, dear friend, Pancake moaned. We're ever so sorry, Sir French Toast atoned. Waffle stood silently, face filled with grief, and then Waffle let out a sigh of relief. I worried I'd lost my new friends, Waffle wailed. But everything's normal, you're back, he exhaled. Waffle, said Pancake, we'll always be chums. Exactly, said Toast, till we wither to crumbs. In the apartment, they finished their tea. All of their aches and their mold ceased to be. The trio felt splendid, in spearmint condition, as friendship prevailed through their small expedition. And here they are having a party at the end, like they always do. Juice Springsteen is playing. Brendan Kearney always adds these funny, silly bands at the end. Last time it was the Peach Boys, and the time before that it was Spuddy Holly and the Croquettes. And here is the big fold-out page at the end. And I will show it to you here as well. The end. Thank you so much for reading that with me. Now, this story, as I mentioned, the first one was a race. The second one was a mystery. The third one was sort of an action-adventure spy thriller, Mission Defrostable. And this one here, at first when I wrote it, I thought it was sort of a sci-fi comedy like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or The Absent-Minded Professor. But then I realized it's actually also sort of a, I said sort of again, it's also a magical body swap type movie, like or book, like Freaky Friday or Big. So I would call this a sci-fi magical body swap comedy. Yeah, so that is short and sweet. And I would love to answer some questions that you guys have come up with now. So, hi, Mr. G. Oh, you're on mute.
Gotta get that unmute done. First off, let me just give you a round of applause for everyone. That was awesome. That was really
you know what? Don't give me a round of applause. You know what? Your students should give you and all of their teachers a huge round of applause because, you know, I'm only here for what, half an hour, 45 minutes, but your teachers are there all day, every day, usually before you get to school, and they stay late and they work on teaching things at home and they work all summer, even though you think they have off. They really don't. They get training and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm married to a teacher, I know. So you should give your teachers a huge round of applause, okay? Everyone at home, give your teachers a big round of applause. And you know what? You know what you should do? At the end of every day, you should give your teachers a standing ovation, okay? Every day for the rest of your lives, all right? That's what you should do.
No, I appreciate that sentiment. It goes a long way. That is true. So you actually answered the first question I think kids had when you talked about your Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast series, where you got the idea, because we actually talked about that here in the library. I said to him, I wonder, was he eating breakfast one day? Like, where did he get this? But the number one question that a lot of kids did want you to answer is, where do you find inspiration for all your books or any of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get inspiration from lots of places. I would say I get inspiration from places and ideas from places. Sometimes they overlap, but my biggest source of inspiration is reading other books. I don't get ideas from them because those books are already written, but I get so inspired to write by all the amazing, amazing books that I read. When I started out writing, I was reading a lot of books to my kids, and this book here, Iggy Peck, Architect, it's the same people who made Rosie Revere, Engineer, Ada Twist, Scientist, Sophia Valdez, Future Pres. This is one of my favorite books to read to my kids, and it really got me excited about wanting to make my own books. When I was a kid, all the books were about puppies or bears or going to bed or the first day of school, and this was different. This was about an architect, and so I thought it was really cool, and I love the illustrations. It has great rhymes. And another one of my books that I loved reading to my kids, not my books, another book I loved reading to my kids was this, The Curious Garden. It's written and illustrated by Peter Brown. He illustrated Creepy Carrots, if you know that one. And he also wrote The Wild Robot. That's another great chapter book. And I just loved the art of this book. It's about a little boy named Liam who helps this garden grow. And it's the kind of art that I wanted to hang around my house. I loved it. And so I thought, I want to try to write my own books. And I still get inspired today by other people's books. This is my favorite book of the year. It's by an author who is from Philadelphia, by the way. And it's called Your Name is a Song by Jamila Tompkins Bigelow and illustrated by Luisa Uribe. And it's about a little girl who, I don't know if you've read this, but it's about a girl who, after the first day of school, she comes, her mom picks her up, and she had a terrible day because nobody could pronounce her name. And this book, on the way home, the mom tells her daughter that every name is important. Every name deserves to be learned and spoken correctly. Even the teacher couldn't pronounce her name right. And every name, if you learn it as a song, it sometimes can help you make it more memorable and help people remember it. Every name is important. And so I love the art. I love the book. I love the message. This is my favorite book of the year. It's so inspiring. All of these books, by the way, you can get from the Children's Book World. I know that they have them. And if they don't have them today, they can get them for you by early next week. So I highly recommend all of those books. But yes, reading books inspires me to be a writer. Now, as far as where I get ideas from all over the place. I get ideas sometimes, well, not so much lately, but I used to spy on people at the coffee shop. That never hurt. I saw a couple birds chirping outside earlier, and I thought, I wonder what they're chirping about. Maybe they're arguing about who forgot to make the bed this morning or where they want to go on vacation this winter. Sometimes I get ideas from my kids. Sometimes I get ideas. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and you had a dream and you're like, oh, that was such a cool dream. I was flying and there were creatures and now I can't remember any of it. Has it ever happened to you? Because that happens to me all the time. I always keep a pencil and a pad next to my bed because it's really important that you write down all of your ideas that you have in the middle of the night, because I actually did that. I wrote down the word, I gotta find it. Where is it? Oh, here. I wrote down the word pyrosaurs, and I wrote it down, and I went to bed, back to bed in the middle of the night, and I woke up the next morning and I saw it and I thought, oh, that sounds fun. And I started a first draft, a book about pirate dinosaurs. And a few years later, it turned into a book. So always keep a pencil and paper next to your bed or a pad or something. And also, by the way, studies show that children have way better imaginations than adults. So it's really important that you write down all of your ideas that you have as kids so that you can steal them from your younger self when you're old and boring. Okay, very, very important. But yeah, I get ideas from all over the place. Just keep my eyes open and write them down. Because if you write them down when you have time to write, and sometimes you get really excited about an idea that you have to write it right then. And those are usually the ones that turn into books because I'm really, really excited about them. So good question.
That was a great answer. In fact, you hit on a bunch of the other questions that they had. So let me see if I get this right. You didn't always think you were going to be a writer, correct?
I am actually a software engineer. Does anybody do coding or anything like that? Has anyone ever done coding? Because that's my day job. I'm actually taking sort of an extended coffee break today, but normally I write code during the day and I write picture books on the evenings and weekends and coffee breaks and bathroom breaks and whenever I get a spare second. But I actually wrote a couple books about code, how to code a sandcastle and how to code a roller coaster. Now they're picture books. They're about a little girl named Pearl and her robot Pascal, and the two of them use coding concepts to build a sandcastle and go to an amusement park. Like they use loops and sequences and if then else's. And so I have written some books about code because that is the one other thing that I do know about. But yeah, I did not start writing until I was 32 years old. Yeah, it's pretty old, right? I didn't start until I was 32. When I was a kid, I didn't know that I wanted to be a writer. I liked to read, but I didn't love to read. And I was an okay writer, but I wasn't like people were saying that guy's going to be a writer when he grows up. No, I was an average student, just regular. And I I really actually like to write outside of school. That was one of my favorite things to do. I didn't always think about it as writing, but I would make up my own Garbage Pail Kids cards. I used to write poems about my favorite athletes from the Boston area, Larry Bird and Roger Clemens and Ray Bork. I grew up in Boston in the 80s. I wrote for the school newspaper when I got a little bit older, and it was part of school, but it wasn't a class. It was like a kind of a club, an after school activity. And I just wrote silly things that I thought would be fun and entertain me, and hopefully they'd entertain other people. And I guess that was writing, but I didn't really think about it as that. I just thought about it as something fun I was doing. And when I was in college, I played guitar and I wrote songs. And writing songs is writing. I thought about it more as like making music, not writing. And so when I was reading all these awesome books, I started to write my own. I didn't realize, but I had been writing my whole life, but I never really thought about being an author, being a professional writer until I was 32, about 9 years ago. So it's, I still don't really know what I want to do when I grow up. I'm still a software engineer. I write code and I like that. I like writing picture books, but who knows, maybe 5 years from now, I'll be teaching ballet. I don't know. It's okay not to know what you want to do when you grow up. I still don't.
This is true. I agree with that statement big time. So one of the questions one of the kids had, I probably can find who it was, but they wanted to know if you could only do one for the rest of your life, either computer programming or writing books, which would you choose?
I think that I don't have to answer that. I'm lucky I don't. I wouldn't choose. I'm always going to do both. I'm always going to do lots of things. And like I said, at the age of 32, I thought about writing and maybe I'd want to do that. Who knows if you had told me 10 years ago when I was 31 that I was going to have 15 published books, let alone any published books, I would have said you're nuts, because I'd never written anything to try to get published in my life. So, 10 years from now, who knows what I'll be doing? Like I said, I'm not going to pick anything, and I'm going to do lots of things as long as I can. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Have you had any ideas for a book that you started, but you couldn't complete it and you gave it up?
Yes. I've probably written like 100 books. I have 15 books that are published, but I've probably written like at least 100. And a lot of them are sort of practice books, and that's okay. That's important. Think about, does anybody play any instruments or play any sports? Writing is very much the same. My first book that I ever tried to write, my first manuscript, was called Detective Emma and the Guitar Dilemma. And it was about a fox who was a detective who was trying to help her friend who was a squirrel find his missing guitar. And they found all these woodland creatures who were instrument playing. Like there was a porcupine who had two quills in his back, and he took him out and played the drums. And there was a swan who played the horn. You know what? It was not very good. I'm telling you the best parts. So, and my second book was also not very good. My third book was even worse. My fourth book was okay, a little bit better, but it took a lot of practice before I got a book. Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast was my very first book, before I got a book that was really any good. And that's totally normal, though. It takes practice to do anything. You can't be like, here's a violin, go have a concert. No, you have to practice. You have to take lessons. And eventually you might have a recital or a concert, but most of the time that you're playing your violin, it's not a concert. And it's the same with writing. Most of the stuff that you write is practice. And every once in a while you have one that's really good that turns out to be a concert or a game, but most of the time it's just practice. And that's totally normal. That's totally okay. Sometimes I give up because nobody wants to publish my book. Sometimes I give up because my friends thought it was just okay. Sometimes I give up before I even finish a first draft because I realize I'm not that excited about this anymore. So it happens all the time. The most important thing is to just try to entertain yourself and have fun with it. If you're having fun with your writing, then chances are other people will too. If you're bored with it, or you are having trouble and you're stuck, then that's okay. Sometimes if you're stuck and you really, really are excited about it and you want to get unstuck, there are ways to do that. Sharing your writing with your friends is a great way to do that. I love to share my writing with my friends, and they can maybe help you brainstorm. Sometimes taking a nap. Like I said, I get ideas in my dreams all the time. Usually right before bed, I have a lot of great ideas, and I'm always like, oh, I'm in bed, I'm going to have to write this down or I'm going to forget it. So I have to get up and then write it down, because if I don't, I will forget it the next day. I might remember I had an idea, but I won't remember what it was. So I always have to write it down. But yeah, So I think that there's lots of ideas that I don't want to say I necessarily give up on, but that, you know, you put to the side for a little while. I can always come back to them. They're all saved somewhere on my Google Drive or in an email or something like that. So just because you give up for now doesn't mean you give up forever. And like, for example, when I was writing my coding books, I ended up with How to Code a Sandcastle. The first story I wrote was not How to Code a Sandcastle. I wanted to write a book about code. And I thought, okay, I got to get a picture book about code. And I wrote a book, and it was about a little boy and girl who got sucked into a computer screen, and they went to this magical world. It was kind of like a cross between Alice in Wonderland and Tron and The Wizard of Oz. I don't know if anyone's seen Tron. It's not a particularly good movie, but it was like getting sucked into a computer. And they met with these witches named Iffy and Elsie. They met Pointer named Arn. All these inside jokes for adults. None of my friends got it. And I ended up putting that to the side and saying, okay, this isn't working. Let me try a different approach to writing a picture book about coding. And so I wrote a picture book about a little girl and her little brother. Little girl saw everything through a lens of coding, like the world was all code everywhere. The Ferris wheel at this amusement park they were at was like a loop and all this stuff. And the little brother was annoying because that's what little brothers are. And so I thought, you know, okay, I sent it to my friends and they still didn't get it. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to try again. So eventually I did How to Code a Sandcastle, and it worked. It finally worked. And then when I was trying to come up with a sequel for How to Code a Sandcastle, I went back to that little big sister and little brother at the amusement park. And I replaced the little brother with Pascal, the robot, and changed a whole lot. I mean, it's not the same book at all, but it was very similar in a lot of ways. And I got to reuse a lot of the pieces of that second story, that second attempt, to turn into How to Code a Roller Coaster. And so I got to reuse it even though I had given up on it. So it's still, sometimes when you think you're giving up, you're not necessarily giving up. I've written some books where I had some really good rhymes, but the story wasn't great. But you know what? I've reused those rhymes in other books later on where the story was better. So like I said, everything's practice and everything can be reused. So yeah, no time's wasted.
Awesome. So two students were curious about, like, because I think they're really thinking about how they're learning right now, right? Especially in this virtual world. They want to know, do you have like a place that you work that's quiet to do your writing? And like, what is the main place you brainstorm? You already said that you like to brainstorm with some of your friends to help you think through some things. Like, yeah. I think just a little bit about that process.
There are places that I've gone in the past to both meet with others, like writing communities and conferences and meetups and things where I've gone in the past. I'm obviously not going right now, trying to stay socially distant. At home, I have an office, but it's my day job office. So I worked from home even before the pandemic. So it's a little hard for me to write in my day job office because that's for my day job. It's even though like it's a different computer, but it's still right in the same spot. My favorite place to write is actually to go to my local library. I've moved since it's a couple towns over now, but to go to the library in Lexington, Massachusetts, and sit in the children's room, put in some headphones and listen to some white noise, usually on YouTube or something, and just write there and just absorb all the kids running around and all the books and everything. That's my favorite place to write. I've written several books in just sitting at the tables, and those tables are tiny because they're meant for kids. And sitting in one of those little chairs with my laptop on a table in the middle of the room and just writing. That's probably my favorite place to write. I like to try to find a place that's not my regular workspace. It's not where I watch TV. It's not my bed where I sleep, but a special place where I write. And I like to switch it up. It could be a coffee shop sometimes. It could be various places, but somewhere that's just a little bit not used by other parts of my life. So that's a really good point. And I haven't had that lately, which has been a little tough actually, because I can't go to the library right now and sit there and write. And maybe I could and reserve a room, but I don't need to. So it's not something that I've done. But yeah, I do like having a space. Good question.
All right. So you mentioned your current favorite book. Two different students. One wanted to know, what is your favorite book of your own that you've written? Like, do you have one that you enjoy writing more than others, or one that you're super proud of that, oh, I wrote this. This is such a great story.
I can't answer that. That's like asking me which of my kids is my favorite. It's my daughter, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. It's my son. Well, okay, you know what? I wrote Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast, the first book, in 2012. And it didn't come out for 3.5 years. Okay, it took 3.5 years to make this book. And after 3.5 years in 2015, it came out. I'm a better writer today than I was in 2012 and in 2015. And the one I just read you, short and sweet. This book came out in September, but I wrote it in 2018, early 2018. So I wrote this 2.5 years ago. I'm a better writer than I was 2.5 years ago. I'm a better writer than I was in September because I've had more practice. Just like you're probably better writers than you were 2 years ago, right? I mean, it makes sense. You've had more practice. You've learned a lot more. So I think my favorite book is probably the next one, whatever I'm working on right now. In fact, I actually have at the moment some sketches of a book that it's not going to come out until next school year. The book is called My Pet Feet. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I'd love to share some of the sketches with you if you'd like to see them. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have to keep this a secret. I don't want anyone posting on TikTok or YouTube or anything like that, because if you do that, I will get in big trouble with my publisher. But so you promise you keep it a secret? Okay, you can tell your family, but like just your immediate family, no aunts and uncles, all right? All right? Yeah. So anyone that lives in your house, basically, but no neighbors, no one else. So I'm going to share, this is My Pet Feet, and it's illustrated by Billy Yong. And in this book, the letter R has mysteriously disappeared. And this little girl who has a pet ferret, what happens when you take out the R's in the word ferret? It's spelled Ferret. Well, her pet ferret has turned into pet feet. And so everything in the world that had a letter R in it no longer has the letter R in it. So she goes outside and there's kids on go-kats instead of go-karts. And there's a T and a policewoman on the back of a galloping hose. This is going to look a little bit more like a hose than a horse right now. But when you take the R out of horse, it becomes hose. And they're serving loaves of bead at the store instead of loaves of bread. And her best pal is now her best fiend, because if you take the R out of friend, it becomes fiend. In the whole town, there's a whole bunch of things. The sports magazines are now spots magazines. And the break shop across the street is also a bake shop, just like the bake shop. And throughout the whole book, there's flying cows that chase her instead of flying crows. She climbs up a cane, a giant candy cane, it looks like, instead of a crane. And she really wants to get her pet ferret back. But this whole book is written without the letter R. There are no R's in the book until the end when she gets them back. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but you see here she's chasing her pet feet named Doodles past a fog and toad, down a tail by the old babbling brook, and into a gassy field, which obviously should be a frog and toad, down a trail by the old babbling brook and into a grassy field. You can see this gassy field has a bunch of butts on it. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep that or not, or if the publisher will make them take out the butts, but I think that's kind of funny. So eventually they reach the sea-shoe where there's a bunch of cabs snapping at each other instead of crabs. And here's the big, not the pier, but the pie that they go to. So I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but this is My Pet Feet. This is what I'm working on now. So this might be my favorite because this is what I'm working on. But I already wrote all the words. Billy Yong is already illustrating it. Now these are just sketches in black and white. He'll make them more fancy and more clear in colors, add colors to them later on. But you can see throughout there's little notes from the editor and the art director and the people that work at the publisher that are helping out. And so, yeah, but that is a little taste of My Pet Feet. So
do you get input on that for the illustrations at all, or is that just all the illustrator?
It's mostly the illustrator and the art director and the team at the publisher. This is being published by Simon and Schuster, and but they do ask me for input. I've made 15 books now, so I know a little bit about how to make a book. But at first, I really didn't. At first, they didn't ask me, and I didn't really know what to tell them. I mean, I'm not an artist, so the artists know more than I do about how to make art, right? I mean, that kind of makes sense. And so, I eventually learned a little bit about what I thought would make better read alouds and what, oh, maybe we should take out these words because it's already illustrated, or maybe we should move these words to the next page because it's spoiling what's on the next page or something like that. And so that's what I do, but it's mostly the illustrator. Most of the stuff that I ask to be changed at this point is just stuff about my words, usually getting rid of them because the pictures show so much and they're so amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I had one other question I wanted to get to you, and now I forget what it was. Oh, I know. So the one I'm drawing a blank because you've given us so much great stuff. That you said you pointed out the one book that right now is currently your favorite one, the one about your name is a song.
Yeah.
And that's a great book. But do you have any other like children's series or authors that you really like the kids know? For me, John J. Muth is like my favorite. Like I adore his writing and the illustrations, because I mean what I'm gathering from you is you appreciate the illustrations as much as I think the kids do, right?
Zen Ghosts is one of my favorites. I get chills when I read Zen Ghosts.
Oh yeah.
John J. Muth. Yeah. I mean, I like the Zen series, but the Ghosts one, have you read that one lately?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that one. It's hard because I haven't met John J. Muth, but I've met a lot of the other authors now that I'm in this world. And a lot of I'm actually friends with Peter Brown and Andrea Beatty and Jamila Tompkins Bigelow, who wrote the 3 books that I shared. I wasn't friends with all of them before I read their books. Jamila, I was, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite author or a favorite book. I have a lot of great books that I love to read with my kids. Gregor the Overlander series was a lot of fun, and Artemis Fowl. Yeah, I mean, there's so many books. The Sisters Grimm series. There's a whole bunch of chapter books that I love to write, and some of my favorite. I love Pink is for Blobfish is one of my favorite nonfiction books by Jess Keating. There's a whole bunch of great books out there that I'm a big fan of. I don't know, but yeah, it's you probably know more of them than I do, being a librarian. So I would trust your opinion. What's your favorite book?
Well, the kids know Zen Shorts is my favorite. I read that to every single grade every year, just because I think the message in it's a great one, and it introduces them to the world of John J. Muth. But there's a lot of them out there that I really enjoy, and they know that. But I want to leave you with this last question, because you've hinted at this a couple of times that you can do anything you really want to do. So one of the kids did want to know, like, if you could choose anything to do next, what would you want to do?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, after this evening, at least, I'm going to go head over to Target and pick up some stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm really in the mood for some Chinese food right now. So I think I'm going to probably do that. I don't look too far into the future. This weekend I might play some NBA 2K. Yeah, that's really about it that I have for in the future. I try to enjoy myself in the current time, and I'm going to write something that makes me laugh, and I'm going to go code something that I'm supposed to do for my day job. And there's nothing really, that I don't have any huge dreams that I don't know. It would be cool if they made a movie out of one of my books, I guess, but I think everyone thinks that, or a TV show or something. But again, that wouldn't be me making that. That would be somebody else doing it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe writing a chapter book. I've tried to write a few, but they're hard. It's hard. It's like they're a different art form. So I don't know. I think this year's been a kind of wild year, and maybe after this year, I'll set some goals to do some other different things. And I'd really like to do, I don't think they're open right now, is snow tubing. We have this awesome snow tubing place near us, and but I'll bet probably not open this year. It did snow about a foot this week earlier. Did you guys have a snow day this week at all or anything?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yesterday was our first snow day.
Okay, yeah.
So the kids got to enjoy that. Well, it's funny because I think you just answered another question that I didn't ask, and it is things that you enjoy to do. I think you just gave a lot of kids insight that like it's not all about programming and writing books all the time.
I think and if you want to be a writer, there's really only two things you need if you want to be a writer. All right, two things. One, you need to know the alphabet. Does anybody out there know the alphabet? Maybe a few people. All right, cool. Two, you need to know how to tell a good story. And that's it. Those are the two things. And the best way to learn how to tell a good story is to read a lot of stories. Read picture books and chapter books and graphic novels and comic books and fiction and nonfiction, biographies, fantasy. Read every kind of story there is, because the more stories you read, the better you're going to learn what makes a good story. What are the ingredients? What makes good characters? What makes good plots and good beginnings and good villains and good endings? And all of that is going to help you learn how to tell your own good stories. And that's really all you need. One, the alphabet, and two, know how to tell a good story. And that's it. That's really all you need if you want to be a writer. And that's really my best advice for writers out there. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time, Josh. It's very exciting to have you here. Like I said, I don't know how much feedback you get from your publishers, but you are beloved by many students out here, and we do really enjoy your stories. So we appreciate all your hard work and the time that you give to us. I love that you keep on referring to your day job. Of all the authors I've met through children's book world, so many of them share that, I've got my day job and I've got my writing. And there's been a few that I've met that, all they do is write, but they are obviously the lucky ones who can do that. But I appreciate you sharing your time.
I like my day job. I also like my day job. I like to code and I like to write. You don't have to be just a math and science person or just a reading and writing person. You can do both. In fact, if you want to be a math and science person, it's very important that you're a good reader and writer.
Absolutely.
You need to read all of the research that came before you and all the things that people did in science so that you can build upon them and do experiments and learn new things. And then when you do those experiments and you do more things in science and engineering, you can then share what you've learned with others. You need to be able to read what came before you and write what you learned so others can learn from you. So reading and writing is very, very important. So
absolutely. Well, I just want to let our fifth graders know that after we're done here, you're free for the rest of the afternoon. You do not need to be jumping into some other kind of encore meeting because I appreciate that people tuned in. And that's it. Thanks again, Josh.
Oh, I do want to say one other thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I know it's the holiday season, and there's a lot of people are getting gifts and stuff, and maybe you're thinking about getting a gift for your teachers. I highly recommend that you get a gift for an independent bookstore gift certificate, like a gift certificate to Children's Book World, because let's face it, teachers have enough mugs and candles. I'm married to one, I know, but teachers can never have enough books. So get them a gift card or a gift certificate to Children's Book World. That is the best gift that you could give to any educator, your teachers, your librarians, whoever. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about what to get for your teachers for the holidays, or just for a gift for any reason. So
awesome. I'll give you a round of applause. Thanks again, Josh. I really appreciate it. And everyone else, have an incredible afternoon.
Yeah, bye everyone.
And weekend.